Do you guys have any thoughts? Do you want to just meet up in the Warrens at the Crooked Skinner, and have some time to like just kind of role play between your characters to see if you have something that you want to play that would come up organically in character? Do you want to do you have any other thoughts what you might do in the city?
So this is actually probably only a couple days after Davros and the others had gotten back from the um, our last quest into the North Market. Um, so he's probably still kind of just finishing up, like licking his wounds from that. Um,
Yeah, so I would definitely say um things are still like in that idea of things happen in real time. So oh, that's actually you. When we played last was Friday, so yeah, it's 3 days basically have passed since then. Um, as far as things go with Malchin, ooh, you actually have a job at the docks. It's been a while since you've played, so you would be owed some gold. But you're welcome to kind of like come in and figure out some things while I calculate that for him. But if you end up with any other questions as well, Justin, you can let me know.
would it have been enough time for, I guess, Davros to get the that first offer on the armor that he left with?
Oh, as
Uh,
far as I'm concerned, that armor, Kalimtas bought that from you. So yeah, you've got that.
okay, did we decide on what he actually got for it?
I thought I gave you a value for that. I thought it was something like 2,300 gold or something. Yeah, that 2,360 gold.
Oh, okay. I was okay. Yeah,
So
I missed that. I wasn't sure what that meant actually.
so you guys haven't gone terribly deep into what trading is like in the city. There's really only one person who buys actual things that come of out of the banewarrens. In the long run, magical items sold in Ptolus are still rare enough. There is a group who sells magical goods, and they have a monopoly on it. There are very few people who will deal in magical goods for the threat of basically stepping on the wrong toes. And that is part of what Madrith gets away with Madrith's oddities, is that she doesn't sell new magical items. She sells used goods. And just like with most things, like most of this world, nobody has business dealing with the things like, you know, obviously just from that one come up, you can kind of recognize like on some level, it's that level of Davros could work his entire life and never have come upon a treasure like that much money, like finding one magical item really turns out to be.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I don't know, would the guilds have like banks essentially that they so he doesn't want to be carrying around that much on him.
Um, I think that's definitely one of those things where um I'm pretty sure there's actually banks in world. I can't think what they are, but I would say, yeah, that's one of the things that comes to mind is the actual like vault owners. Where you could like rent a lockbox. So a place like Hammer Song Vaults in like Old Town is a place that you could go to like get a lockbox. Um, I would say you could. keep it with the actual guild and inside of the Twin Star Marauders. Um, and that's essentially going to leave you with something like along the levels of, mm, I don't know, going towards like free banking instead of paying for it kind of thing. But they might do something with it too. So,
Right. And then at least, yeah, probably a decent chunk of that is he's going to be using that. Now he has enough that he can actually put up a pretty sizable reward for, um, like, basically reward for information or the return of them. Um, and then I was thinking, like, if essentially, like, it's kind of like a tip line, like in real life, right? Like he's going to get all sorts of things that don't pan out, but like that he feels like he has to follow up on, into that I don't know, maybe he hears a rumor about something in the docks, and Malshire has some familiarity with that area, so they maybe that's why they start traveling together to go check something out, just some random kind of rumor or something. I don't know.
so shadow sending is one of those things that I think you've seen a little bit of, where some of the wealthier folks can actually use this kind of new business. And that's sort of an option where if people do find information, they could contact you in a fashion. Uh, Other than that, it would be the kind of thing of deciding, do you actually like give out your private information? Do you kind of keep that kind of to yourself? Do you give out like guild information? And that would then include whether it's your actual guild as like a tradesman or guild as in the Twin Star Marauders.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll have to think of it then, because he might not want to just because if he advertises, "Oh, I'm offering this much, all this money for information," then obviously he's going to attract a lot of would-be thieves and such as well. So yeah, he might be a little more circumspect now that I think about it.
Ouch, and I've got almost a little over 3 months, almost 4 months since you played.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
We said 8 silver per week for a 2 week trial period at the Silken Sale. So I'll give you that 8 silver while you've been away. So if it's been, let's do like the full 4 months of like 4 weeks, so 16 weeks. So 16 gold minus 20%. What is that like? Do like 13 gold? Maybe do 12 gold and assume you spent something, but I would say you could take like 13 gold for your time from the Silken Sailor. Silken Sail. There we go. No, I get the name right at some point. But I think like in that time you would kind of have come to recognize a little bit more and more the actual like people over here at the Crooked Skinner. This is essentially kind of moving towards trying to centralize this as the guild where all the players come from. So there's a certain amount of NPCs who are here that you all would like come to recognize being kind of normal, like not necessarily like lazily sitting about, but this is part of also keeping it safe because it is still in the Warrens. They always have like 6 to 10 people here inside of the actual tavern, and that's part of what keeps this tavern sanctified, is what we'll go for at present. Um, but you guys could come to recognize more and more. Like Maybell and Kalimtas are always here, but you see pretty regularly some of the other figures And then some of the player characters, I'm just going to hide up in that top row. Carrie actually left that day. But we got Vabusa and Jinx over here. Do you want to drop Mouchin and place yourself on the board here with us, Chris? So, in kind of like between times for you guys, do you have any thoughts on some of the things you would have done? Some of the things, um, I don't know, that might like intrigue you. I think we've got at least a little bit of information on the fact that there have been, like, Mouchin is one of the people who discovered some of the action of the slavers who were over on the docks. That's one of those things. If you guys have any contact between each other and it remotely comes up, the other person who was kind of investigating and getting a little close, or one might say too close to that, was Dalton. And that's exactly what Davros is kind of looking for here. Um, there's the potential of what we might talk about if you guys were interested in that like ghost house in the North Market and what happened with the goblins there recently. Um, Potential to go to Delver Square and go to like the black market or simply just kind of role playing around Delver Square. Um, what do you guys think?
Um, well, if Melchin has had run-ins or knows something about slavers, that would be something probably Davros would be interested in investigating.
Mountain, do you remember what your encounters were? What was kind of happening?
Yeah, I'm trying to. It's been so freaking long though, but I think I remember like while on a job, I found like a warehouse where shady shit was going on, and I think one of the persons was looking for. Yeah, no, that's
So one of the things that Mauchin brought in for the guild to recognize is he found what seemed like a little coded message, and this was one of the things that seemed to point towards Delver Square and the Vi in particular, which is an assassins guild in uh, in Ptolus here. So for right now, let me have the two of you do, I don't know, like an intelligence, just a kind of generic intelligence to see what you know about the Vi.
So it'll be a 9 for Davros.
and that will be an 8 for Malshin.
Whenever rolling, always hide the dice roller while it's on a 20. Yeah, so I think with kind of Kalimtas like going over this with you, we have very little information about the Vi ourselves. There are those who say it is their duty to kill someone every day to maintain themselves. There are those who say that it would be unsustainable and the city would collapse were the Vi to harvest in such numbers. There's little that I know other than that their secrets seem to lie as deep as the pits beneath Taurus. But that's that little handout. It's actually marked September 4th under the quest board. The swept along the king's flow. I waded to the right bank. Aside a besh, I stepped anew. And then that symbol would be the Vi symbol that's vaguely recognizable. And I think, like, without taking the history check, I think everybody could recognize that Abesh was among the first, like, delvers to actually go beneath the city and kind of strike it rich. Um, One of the other things that Maoshin kind of came about was the actual importance of Doom. I think one of the first missions that you had was actually to potentially stop one of these children who are marked at birth. Um, and that was one of those things that vaguely ties into some of the other things that Dalton was up to. Um, ooh, that might have gone too far. That might be information you guys don't have. My apologies there. Do you remember, Chris, what Malchin was originally tasked with? Did you get tasked with something about the Children of Doom?
I remember something about it. I think they wanted me to potentially kill one. So I remember it being like asking if I could like potentially kill a child if I needed to.
Yeah, I think that was actually the person you were tracking was to try to find who had taken that.
Yeah, they had. Yeah, that's probably yeah. They had either they knew where the child was or had taken the child, and I was supposed to bring it back to not sure who. It was Clintus or just the Crooked Skinner.
Yeah, we had to bring it back here. So that's kind of where it ends right now, is kind of with that kind of thought. Um, but that's one of those things. We could have you guys step back into some tunnels in the Delver Square, searching out this Vi connection, and see how deep that goes or what other options there are there. Um, or, I mean, there's a lot of things depending on what you guys actually want to do.
Yeah, I mean, Davros is he doesn't really have any good leads to go on in terms of um, following up on Dalton. So, but if something, he thinks like obviously something bad befell him, and he's heard about the Kill Raven, but maybe these by, maybe they know something, or maybe they had something to do with things, and kind of more out of just desperation, or just not really having any other leads to go on. He'd be, if that's something Malchin wanted to investigate, he'd be, because Davros doesn't really kind of sitting still, so he'd be up for kind of accompanying him if he wanted to investigate that further.
Well, Malcolm would be curious about what he did, what he found, like that riddle and everything.
So, do you want to seek out more information on the Vi?
Yeah, yeah, probably would. Yeah.
Does that kind of fit with what you're thinking there with Davros, or do you want to like question Killraven?
Um, Investigating the Vi sounds good.
So I already kind of rolled to see what Kalimtas might know, and just basically have a dead end from him. Do you have any thoughts on who either of you would go to try to question and find out any information about the Vi?
Well, Davros has he has at least some small connection with, I believe, it was Captain Simon, after the whole issue deal with the Sloddy tadpole, I think it was.
Gotcha. And I think he connected you with, um, what was that, the Knights of the Pale, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So those are two different options. You could go to effectively like the Guildsman district and search out that Captain Simon. You guys could go to the Old Town and seek out the Knights of the Vale. Um, unless Malchin had a different idea of somebody to go to either of those appeal to you guys?
I don't think Malchin has anyone to go to. He doesn't really know many people so far. There's the bartenders in the Silken Sails, but I hardly think they know much about Vi.
And Davros is more familiar, obviously, with the Guildsman district, so he would probably, between the two, would be trying to go find Captain Simon first.
Let me have the two of you roll these sixes, 1d6, as you leave the Crooked Skinner and basically head off to try to investigate the Vi.
It's a 4 for me.
And a 5 for Malchin.
So, heading out into the city takes you some time to head out of the Warrens themselves. Occasionally, you do spot some of the uh, why can't I think of the name? Pale dogs, kind of like tailing you at times as you are leaving the Crooked Skinner and as you are trying to find your way out of the Warrens. There's definitely times where you can't spot the actual spire in the distance to give you those clues as to where ways out come, but eventually you all do find yourselves heading out of there, feeling like it took you about like a half hour or 40 minutes to kind of make your way outside of the Warrens. And from there, you can start to head off towards the, let's see, down Old Sea Road and towards like Curtain Street is essentially the way to get to the guards um barracks for the Guildsman district. And you guys can search there for to see if you can find Captain Simon. Let me just get a uh go D100 here, and under 27 you can find Captain Simon.
Nope, 81. And this being kind of the first time that Davros and Malchin have been, maybe they've like kind of seen each other in passing in the Crooked Skinner or something, but first time they've kind of been traveling together. Davros would probably be like any questions he asks always seem to get back to his son Dalton, who is been missing now for well over a month, maybe a couple of months at this point. And so, like, if he learns like Malchin works in the docks, he might, just be like questioning, like, have you heard, any kind of anything? You'd be describing what he looks like, all that sort of stuff. Um,
So when you get to the guards shack and you start to have like a discussion with them looking for Captain Simon, and you just have one of the guards who he's been called to let's say the Gilder's Gate. He's been called to the Gilder's Gate. Apparently a fisherman was trying to make it into the city, and things happened. Somebody was murdered, and now he has to go deal with why a man died over entering the city walls. He should be back at some point today. I don't know how long he will be gone, or if you would like, you can travel in that direction and find him at the Gilder's Gate. Basically, if you guys look to where like 310 is on this map, where the like kind of refuse pit is over there, the Gilder's Gate is just that south wall. If you follow Vaderust Street all the way down Gilder's Hall or Gilder's Street, it's like Curtain Street to the west, Vaderust Street south, and then at Smoke Street you go left, and that's down Gilder Street to the gate there. And you guys could head that direction if you wanted to go on your way to finding Captain Simon.
Hi, Gilder's Gate. I know it well. Perhaps we'll see if we can run into him. If you've no objection there, Nelson.
Ah, no, no objection from me. Sooner we find him, the better.
Right then. Davros will kind of give a nod of thanks to the guard and um, kind of start heading off down towards the gate or in that direction.
So just wanted to make sure while you have guards in front of you, you're trying to ask a guard that you have more trust of, right?
Yeah, he met some other guard as well. I don't know if he would be in the area, like along with Captain Simon. It was some other guard, I think, that actually helped him take down the Slotty. But if there was one that he recognized that he had kind of spoken with before, yeah, he would obviously be um, speaking with them if he could.
Roll another D100 for me. And we'll say 10% Curran is there.
Now I get the 27.
It's so weird that I said 27, let alone that you would then roll it right afterwards. Oh, I am very sorry. Curran is actually traveling with Captain Simon right now, though. You can find the two of them at the Gilder's Gate. Safe travels to you, friend. And they'll just kind of send you on your way there. Yeah, so as you guys kind of walk to my bed.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, so Davros would probably, just in case, he'd like ask them, like, if you know, if you see Captain Simon or Curran, just tell them Davros stopped in and wanted to speak with them. They know me. Just to kind of leave a message with the guards before heading off. So
Yeah, so let me name another random guard. Um this guard is I'm trying to think of a rank. Can't even think of it.
uh,
Just gonna give him a Tyrell, and Tyrell basically like looks to you. He was like, "I will let them know that," and he says, "Davros has come to look for Simon and Karen. Uh, it will be my duty to pass this on. Travel safe."
my thanks. Yeah, and Davros will leave it at that.
Let me get another D8 from the two of you here.
2.
And a 6 from me.
All right, so as you all are kind of passing from Curtain Street down like Vladimir Street or Vadarest, and heading towards Smoke and Gilder Street, it comes to a point where there's kind of like a blockage, and you can just kind of feel like a lot of people are not like moving forward, and you're kind of like stuck on Vladimir or Vadarest. You're kind of stuck on Vadaras Street, and you're not making any more southerly progression there. Do you just kind of like stay in the street and almost just kind of bask a little bit in the sun? Do you make an effort to kind of like divert yourselves and try to take some back roads? What kind of thoughts do you all have if you kind of come to like a stagnant point and like it seems like the foot traffic has stopped?
I feel like Davros's first instinct is to try to sort of push his way, kind of use his bulk, kind of push his way through the crowd, and kind of not to anyone in particular, but like, what's going on? What's the holdup here? Essentially, wants to find out, what's blocking their way.
Yeah, let me get a persuasion from you.
All right, that will be flat 19.
Just kind of like start pushing through people, and you make a little bit of room just like kind of like throwing your weight around a little bit. And eventually just kind of like yelling forward as people are getting tighter and tighter together. There's definitely like not a dangerous like panic crush, but there is a little bit of a crush going on here. You can already kind of feel like this is somewhat unsafe. Were there to be like a fire or something, it's the kind of level where there's enough people packed in that people are going to get like stomped on and trampled. But, like, as you start to call out and are actually, like, yelling almost to the next, like, tall person who stands out above the crowd, like, 50 feet in front of you, you're starting to kind of, like, get, like, a little bit of, like, a telephone between some of the people who stand out from the crowd a little bit more. And after a few moments, when it gives way, where you can no longer really force yourself, forward much more and you're just kinda stuck in things, you start to hear word kind of coming back that there's like herdsman. There's a herdsman lost part of his flock. Smoke Street, Gilda Street, and you kind of like start to pick up these little bits of information that there's basically somebody who's bringing in livestock and has kind of lost control of things at that major crossroads. Um, Let me get a perception check from the two of you.
8.
It takes some difficulty, but you can kind of like manage your way to the west side of the street and try to like climb out and onto some of the like not awnings per se. I feel like awning is a little bit too like short, but not short, but like a temporary. But like roofs maybe of some of these shops and then like up on top of the buildings to kind of get out of this street and hopefully kind of make your way um maybe almost towards Smith Street, but on some level kind of like trying to get off Vatarast and going towards like a Fowler Road. If you guys let me actually move over to a marker so you might be able to see that and kind of get over there towards Fowler, where you might be able to get back to Gilder Street and avoid that problem at Smoke and Gilder's.
Yeah, that seems like sounds like a good plan.
Sound good to Malchin?
Yeah, sounds good to
Think
motion as well.
I think you've got most of the skill here, but if I can have you uh, just roll a dexterity check for me, Malchin, as you kind of like make the real effort to get off of the street. My bad. I don't think Davros is terribly dexterous. And
He's
Malchin's
actually
not going to be very dexterous here.
Davros actually moves better than one would expect for an older, bigger guy.
That
All right,
was a
gotcha. Let
dexterity
me get
check.
a dexterity from you as well.
Mm. Uh, yeah, motion got an 8.
So it'll actually be a 22 for Davros.
Gotcha. So as you guys are trying to make your way like out of the street, there's definitely like a little bit of like the panic is kind of setting into people. Malchin kind of gets like dropped for a moment before Davros is able to like climbing out and grabbing him by maybe just one of the things like by like the loop of your quiver, kind of like lifting you out of the like crush that's happening at this area on Valimar Street, and you guys can kind of like seamlessly hop onto some of these building tops and essentially start to cut across and towards Fowler Road and away from this like backup from the people who are hurting these animals, livestock.
Yeah, it's like lived my whole life, here. I know how to make my way around, and he'll yeah, kind of essentially try to guide Malchin.
Yeah, and it's motion. Yeah, I noticed that you're certainly more agile than you look.
My old age hasn't quite caught up with me, not yet.
Then let's go for one final D6 here.
There's the one.
Yeah, and a 3 from Malcolm.
Oh, and I guess, Chris, do we want to just like quickly describe our characters? What we each other look like?
Yeah, sure. Uh, well, if I can go first, then Malcolm uh, looks like kind of a like light blue human, turquoise hair, green eyes, uh, wearing s- like a bit of ragged clothing with studded leather. Has two short swords on him and a longbow and a quiver of arrows. Uh, Otherwise, well, the most like striking feature of him is that he is light blue. Otherwise, he looks pretty normal.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Davros is looks human. Um, taller than average, maybe a couple inches over 6 feet. Pretty bulky, burly frame. Bald headed, but pretty thick, kind of like facial hair, black. Um, he's got like his arms, or at least like his forearms, especially, are covered in little kind of like scars and places where kind of hair's been singed off. Um, wearing relatively plain clothing, but in looks like it's been patched pretty well, over the years. Wears like a leather kind of like workman's apron over it. Not the kind of thing that's going to offer a lot of protection. Maybe something more that kind of for his job. But he's got a this big kind of like hammer. Uh, Looks like maybe sort of like almost like a modified um, sledgehammer kind of thing, not like a particular weapon of war that looks like it would be effective though. He's got a thing of javelins as well, kind of over his back, and just a dagger at his belt. It looks to be about maybe pushing 50, maybe a little younger than that. Um,
So when you guys are kind of sneaking through these back alleys and kind of like rounding your way back towards where you expect Gilder Street to be, um, actually, let me have you do survivals. Davros, yours. It's gonna be both of you guys. Uh, yeah, Davros, do yours at advantage. Malchin, let me just get a survival from you here.
That's
uh,
a 50 from Malcolm.
Yeah,
and
that should be
20.
good enough. So as you guys are kind of coming back up towards where you expect Gilder's Street to be, you guys are still kind of like on a little bit of a back alley here. Um, I should actually cut a piece of it and made a map. But you guys are gonna kind of like round a little corner, and all of a sudden you're going to see this large kind of brown dog that's just this massive kind of pile of fur, stands almost about like 4 feet to its back. A very, very large. Uh, oh, that is not the picture I wanted. Fail. That's the picture I wanted there. A big, big brown dog. And the moment you guys kind of like round this corner, you can just hear it just like growling at you, like, size of a small bear as far as things go. It's probably about a 300 pound dog, and you guys are about 15-20 feet from it. What kind of thoughts are crossing your minds?
Davros is going to, as it kind of starts growling, he's going to, he'll kind of pause in his tracks. Um, Easy now, easy now. And I guess he's going to try and, can he see anything like beyond the dog? Um, or the canine, whatever it is. Like, does it look like it's I don't know, guarding something, or just maybe they've just stumbled onto its territory?
Um, if you're not trying to do like an animal handling with that like easy now, I would say you could do a perception if you'd like to try to figure out like if you're too close to something, if there's something of note here.
Yeah, the easy now, that was just kind of, that wasn't he's not the dog whisperer, so that was just kind of like something to say. But yeah, he'll mostly be focused on trying to see if there's like something in particular it looks like it's guarding. So I'll do perception. 14.
It's kind of hard to tell at this point. So you're looking and you can see like a sign of some level of this creature is like a pet. Like you can basically see like kind of like maybe a chain around its neck, but you can also see that it's snapped. So it's not that this thing is where it's leashed up to be. You don't see any like water or like hill or food kind of sitting around. You're just kind of in like a little bit of a little dead end alley kind of situation in here at this point. Or not necessarily dead end, but this creature is blocking your cut through alley towards the main road. Any
Davros
thought
is going.
from Malchin when you see it?
Malshan would probably like drop down to a bit of a crouch and just go try to be as calming as he can, I guess. Go, whoa, easy there.
Do you actually want to try to do an
Yes, he would.
animal handling?
That's 14.
So its initial reaction isn't necessarily hostile in kind of response to this, but neither does it actually seem to calm. Um, I'd say at this point you kind of almost have like the doubling down of it baring its teeth at you, but it doesn't also either move like forward towards you nor away from you. Maybe you get like one big deep like oh as it gives like a big bark at you.
Davros is going to look towards Malchin. You don't have anything fresh on you, do you? Food wise?
Sadly not. Nothing that I would feed a dog, at least.
So Davros is going to kind of try to keep an eye kind of on the dog as he does. He's going to try to kind of like going through his pack, pull out maybe some like dried meat, something from some of his rations, um, and maybe like
Yeah, you
he'll
could
try
have
to.
some of that like fresh venison that was like dried from the other day.
Oh yeah. And maybe he'll toss it, like try to toss essentially kind of like halfway between themselves and the dog, um, and kind of still sort of like easy now, not looking to hurt you, um, and maybe trying to like move a little bit closer as he does that.
Gotcha. Let me either have you both do animal handlings or Davros can do an animal handling at advantage.
What do you think, Melchin? Do you want to roll as well?
I think if just get you advantage. I think that yeah.
All right. Via 14.
Yeah, so I think with that one, you're gonna get it to kind of like almost like still inside of like a growl where it's like paws are out and down. Kind of gives you like a big like growl into like another bark. Only this time, as it barks, it kind of like leaps off of its back legs, and it's going to cover about half the distance between you, about to where you threw that. And as it lands, it kind of like has its head tucked down, its butt's kind of like high up in the air, and it's like right over top of the meat right now. What do you think as it kind of like leaps towards you like that? What kind of thoughts are going through your mind?
I think at that point, Davros will kind of, as it leaps down, he's not exactly sure whether it's going for the food or coming for him. So he's kind of essentially kind of like trying to brace himself, not drawing a weapon because he doesn't want to hurt this thing if it does attack. But he's essentially, can he hold like essentially an attack to try to grapple it if it keeps coming for him?
Well, most certainly, yeah.
And still kind of like all throughout, just go easy, easy now. But otherwise, yeah, just kind of like he's not sure, if he's mollified it or not. So just kind of wants to try and grab it if it comes at him. Uh, yeah.
Any thoughts from Malshin as this mastiff kind of covers that distance?
Yeah, I mean he would probably like stiffen up a bit too, but after seeing it going for the venison instead, it would be a bit more like trying to find. He's still cautious, but he's letting his guard down a bit.
Gotcha. And then for Davros, are you pretty much looking for your trigger to be like if it comes more for you, you're gonna grapple it?
Actually, you said is it dragging a bit of chain with it? You said there was a broken chain.
I wouldn't even say it's dragging. I would say it's more you can see that it's like collared.
Okay, so essentially, yeah, he would attend if it tries to come, if it keeps coming closer. They'll essentially try to grapple it by essentially trying to grab it by the collar.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, so it's gonna like as it kind of like lands, it like grabs up the meat between its paws, kind of like stamps its paws again, another big bark, and it's actually going to leap for gonna go for leaping past uh, Davros, and it's leaping for Malchin. You trying to grapple it out of the air?
Yeah, I think he'll still try.
Let me get a strength from you.
Ooh, no. It's be a 7 if it's straight strength. If it's athletics, it would be a 9.
Oh yeah, my bad. It's athletics with a grapple.
Yeah, but still just a 9.
Gonna be enough because I'm gonna have that 6. So as you kind of like almost like reach out to grab it, it's gonna kind of like roll into you. Um, at this point, it is as friendly as can be. One of you was about to get slobbered by this creature, but effectively, yeah, you kind of like reach out to grab it, and from this point, like it's chewing on the jerky. There's slobber going everywhere as this thing's basically going to roll with you on the ground for a moment before you can kind of like basically interpret at this point like it's a friendly enough creature.
Yeah, so Davros will he'll try to kind of give like a bit of a kind of like a jerk of his head to Malchin as he is kind of you know kind of keeping the dog distracted a little bit here. Kind of with the ideas like maybe um, thought I saw something down past it. Can you check it out? Well, he's kind of maybe like making sure the dog is maybe even taking on another piece or two of jerky, petting the dog now that it seems friendly. But maybe letting Malchin see if he can get a look at kind of if there's anything beyond it now that it's somewhat calmed.
Yeah, Martian will be like holding in a bit of a chuckle, but still, yeah, I'll check it out.
Roll a investigation for me as you kind of like look through that bit of the alley, kind of just ahead of you guys.
That would be a 17.
All right, and it's straight for you.
Yep.
Let me go for a D100. That's a 16.
Yeah,
Let me do another D100 from you, please.
and that's a 51.
I'm trying to look for something and I can't find it for some reason at this point. My bad. Oh, I know where it is. Roll a D4 for me, Justin.
3.
And I think a D12.
And that's a 5.
So when you follow back to kind of where this thing kind of like popped out of the alley, you basically come upon like a wrapping, and it seems like just maybe like a leather hide, but you can see like fresh blood on it, or not necessarily fresh blood, like coagulated blood on it, but still within a few days. It's not been weathered through any recent storms from like the rains 3 days ago. You can kind of tell it's from the last day or two that it's been out here underneath the sun and this moon. Um, but you find basically like this leather wrap, and it's probably about 4 or 5 feet long. And it's maybe 6 or 12 inches wide at like the longest. So what is that? Say like a meter and a half long, and maybe like a 20 or so centimeters wide at the widest.
Davros is going to look towards Malchin and open it up. And Davros is going to see if the dog will have it. He essentially is going to try to use some of his rope to fashion a makeshift kind of new collar slash leash.
Do another animal handling, and you can have advantage again.
All right, 20.
Solid. Yeah, it's copacetic enough at this point that it doesn't seem to react differently. Um, Not necessarily like jumping on you as you get up beyond its level at this point, but neither is it like kind of like snarling at you either at this point. Machin, do you pick up this like wrapping, this like package?
Yeah, it will.
Weighs about like 7 or 8 pounds. You can kind of feel it's relatively weighted towards the narrowest section, but there's still quite a bit of weight to like the widest part. Do you unwrap it?
I do.
So let's see. With this one, let me get you to roll another D100 here.
That's an 81.
So as you unwrap this, you will find there is a sword inside of here. It is a pretty long bladed weapon, almost as tall as either of you from tip to hilt. And it seems to be in near immaculate condition. You don't see signs of any like chipping across the blade of having been used in the past. You don't see any signs of like damage or wear to the hilt from age. Overall, it seems to be in kind of a perfect condition. It's got a beautiful, shiny polish to the blade. The hilt itself is pretty austere with kind of like a simple, almost like dark black leather kind of wrapped around what is otherwise just kind of like a cross, pretty typical kind of like cross hilt. Um, doesn't have like big defensive flourishes on the handle. But as far as things go with a blade this long, you're not necessarily um, in that situation pretty regularly, but it's a nice blade to have found.
That's a fine piece. Strange to be lying here wrapped up like that. Can't imagine someone would want to leave a weapon like that behind intentionally.
Well, maybe it was stashed away, seeing as it was wrapped up and there seems to be blood on it. The wrapping, I think.
As you kind of like bring the wrapping out, you can see like there is kind of like a reaction from the mastiff itself. It like kind of like goes over there and like sniffs the wrapping again, kind of gives you all a couple of barks. Um, kind of not necessarily like hostile, but you can kind of gain like some sort of sense of like a familiarity kind of from that. You can kind of make what you will of that.
Perhaps it belongs to its owner. So, given the blood that we found on this parcel, Davros is curious about whether there's any like kind of moving down towards the end of the alley further, trying to see if he can pick up any sort of like any sort of trail of blood or anything. It's been a few days, so it might not still be here, but he's going to take a look anyway.
Let me get a perception from you.
That will be a 6.
Looking around the alley in this area, you don't spot any more signs of blood. Um, from what you can kind of gather here, uh, if this dog and the like satchel kind of belong together, it seems like somebody might have been bleeding coming this way. If it's random, it seems like the bleeding was done like on the actual like satchel, but like not necessarily here.
I'll can't leave this fella, and Davros will kind of be, pat the mud as the mastiff as he says it. Don't think we can just leave this thing out here. What do you think, Melchin? We could try to. Don't know where its owner might have got to, but maybe we ask around, see if anyone recognizes the dog, or I don't know. We could keep on. Perhaps Captain Simon heard something about.
I guess it wouldn't hurt to ask around a bit, see if anyone recognizes the fellow.
So kind of like keeping the dog with you, uh, like throwing a couple of straps around the wrapped up sword. You guys step back out into like the main thoroughfare of Gilder Street and kind of head on your way. Or are you looking for the first person you can find over here by Fowler's Road?
So Davros' thinking is that the dog is, big enough and maybe um, I mean, I don't know. Is this a typical like size or breed for the city or for this area of the city? Like, are these would like this be not that uncommon sight?
Um, ooh, I don't even know how to answer that. Let's put it to the dice to interpret.
I guess kind of like what I'm trying to get at. Like, if would we need to essentially go and kind of like ask people, or is it the kind of thing where someone sees it on the streets, like, oh, that's whoever's dog.
Well, I think one way of interpreting that is that it is a massive dog. So somebody's going to see it if you're walking on the street with it. It's not like if it's a pug and you can just hold it in your hand and somebody like might not even notice that you're holding a dog. It's definitely not a toy. This is the size of a human effectively. And I think that's one thing that certainly sets a mastiff apart is as far as dogs you could take into combat go kind of thing, this is the type of dog that you could train for warfare or as a true guard dog. Um, I think by and large, that probably satisfies the idea that like walking around with it is not being stealthy about it. It's displaying, hey, does anybody recognize this? Because somebody's probably going to say something if they did.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, Davros is not going to be like, doesn't even think like, maybe we don't really need to like even ask around, but just maybe like if we're heading down Gilder Street and not trying to be sneaky or anything. If somebody recognized it, maybe they'll come to us. So just trying to kind of like be out in the open with the dog. And it's also possible, given the quality of the blade, and maybe it's something that you know Captain Simon, if we find him at the gate, maybe he might know something, or one of the other guards.
Yeah, so I would say it's probably worth understanding that most people don't keep dogs. When people keep dogs, it's because they are protecting valuables, or because they themselves are wealthy. But again, it kind of falls into one of those things. Just probably more points you towards um, this could be somebody who's noble, could be somebody who's up to no good, but it also could just be some random delver. So if you guys continue on towards the gates and continue to basically head your way towards Captain Simon, you guys want to take a break here and take like 10-15 minutes?
Yeah, that would work for me.
Yeah, that would definitely be good for me too.
Excellent. So let's look to come back maybe 10 minutes after the hour, and we'll continue on with meeting with Simon.
Yep, sounds good.
With you guys making that last kind of distance to the Gilder's Gate, heading along this kind of like southern pathway. Um, Still like a little bit of commotion going on here. Maybe it's calmed down a little bit, like it's a little bit later in the day. You can definitely still see that there's plenty of people bringing like livestock in to the actual city here. You can see the guards at the actual gate kind of doing the like general keeping the peace kind of thing here. And I'd say, you can just kind of do like a perception and see if you recognize Captain Simon, or you can just roll a D100 and head up to a guard and ask for him.
I think Davros would be for the little more of a direct approach. So just essentially go up to a guard and Looking for Captain Simon. Tyrell up at the guardhouse said he was called down here. He's still around.
Roll a D100 here for me.
68.
So as you kind of like get this guard's attention, and he's like just waving like the next person through, counting like some of the livestock, he kind of like looks at you, and you can like kind of sense like he's like in the process of trying to like keep track of something. And he like points off a little bit north of the guard tower, and kind of away from this entry area, that there's a couple of guards, and you can see that they have like a person in shackles. And when you like look off over there where he's like kind of nodding you towards, you can see uh Captain Simon is among one of the guards there. You can see that the other guard is the Curran, and there's like one other guard, and they're like kind of gathering up uh two different people here, and seem to be like kind of binding them in manacles, about like 200 feet away from the guard post. And then after a few moments before you have a chance to like get away and like walk away, you hear him kind of like yell across to the other guard who's on like the other side of the like entry here, and he's like 60 head of sheep. And then the other one like responds that he got like 54. And they like look at each other and just fuck. And then they like kind of say to you, he's right over there. He's the one with the manacles.
I see him. My thanks. Uh, didn't mean to interrupt your work. Um, but Davros will kind of turn to Malchin and point out Captain Simon, and there he is. That's the one we want to talk to, and he will start heading in that direction.
So you head off, and probably about 50 or so feet away, just kind of like general awareness around them. You probably notice Simon maybe catches you catch his attention maybe a little bit before the other guard, Kieran. But the two of them definitely recognize you within a few moments, before you would get to them. But otherwise, like with kind of a nod, you kind of see like you've got their attention. And as you approach, they would have pretty typical greetings for you. But what kind of thoughts crosses your mind as you find Captain Simon at the Gilder's Gate?
So Davros would kind of return, return the greeting. Um, he would kind of look towards the man being shackled, and then back towards the captain and Kieran. See, you got your hands full, so don't want to take up too much of your time, but it's hoping we might speak a moment. Me and my companion here, Melchin, hoping to ask a couple questions.
It's no worries. We had a bit of a scuffle. Apparently, a dispute over whose fish was whose. Um, and you kind of get like that initial response from Simon. But maybe you have like a little peek perk from like Kieran to see if you were looking for him. Was this meeting private? We were heading back to the guard post. Do you How sensitive is the information that you need to speak about?
I well, not really sure, but happy to walk with you, and maybe it's easier to show than tell. He'll turn to Malchin and want to show him the note.
Yeah, Malcolm would pull out and go like, "Yeah, I found this, and I got a couple of questions about it. If you could answer."
Hmm. Sensitive enough. Let us. So he'll kind of look to the other guards, and he'll say, Curlin, you can return and find this man a place to stay for the night. We will be back sometime later. If you all require anything from me. And I think he's gonna give the location of one of the brew houses. Um, Basically say, yeah, we're gonna go to the Long Draft Brewery. That you can find him here. So he'll send Kieran off. Um, with I'm gonna go for Byron. I'm gonna send Kieran and Byron off with the captive. Ooh, I'm gonna have so many guard NPCs. So you guys can kind of walk with them for a little bit as they head off. He'll be pretty quick to actually like wrap up the actual envelope and kind of hand that back to Maushin. And when you guys get up to Cold Heart Street, you'll take a left and leave the other two behind. And then you guys are going to end up walking along to kind of like the main little like thoroughfare there where you get to Lower Ration Street. And I don't know what that east to west is because it's labeled in the South Market apparently. But you kind of come to where Cold Heart and Lower Ration collide there at 299 is the Long Draft Brewery, and he'll basically like take you on in there. And when he kind of like approaches, you'll see he kind of nods to a few of the different servers and kind of makes his way over to you guys. Get like a little like corner booth, and it's early enough in the day that it's not filled with people. But this is kind of a very large draft house, and it's in the working district. There's plenty of people who work first and third shifts who would be off work that can be drinking. And there's plenty of people who, even if they're still working their second shift, might still be here drinking. So, say this is a place that could hold like a few hundred people. There's like 100 people drinking here. But you guys can get like a more private booth and kind of gather part of the anonymity of coming here is simply that there's so many people here. For somebody to be paying too much attention to you, it becomes a little bit more obvious because there's so much happening.
Yeah, I imagine Davros would probably um, thinking Well, yeah, he's probably not smart enough to think about it. So unless someone essentially tells him to leave the dog outside, he's going to just kind of bring it in with him. But otherwise, kind of follow the captain to a booth. He'll offer to buy a round and kind of like looking to the captain like, you don't have anything, any rules against drinking on duty. Not happy to first buy a round.
So at some point, somebody does actually kind of approach you to say something about the dog, and when they get probably within 5 or 10 steps of you, and say like, "There's no dogs," you just hear, "Arrgh." Person shuts up, walks away, and you guys can go about going into the booth. I think Davros probably would, or Captain Simon would probably say something along the actual trip before you guys necessarily got here to maybe acknowledge, like, you didn't have that dog before, did you? Um, but more or less, that'll probably fit into kind of the idea of just recognizing, like, he doesn't know Mauchin, he doesn't know the dog, maybe a little bit of curiosity between them. But otherwise, it's kind of just like friendly banter about those two. Um, Well, yeah, I don't think the dog would go over neither well nor negatively. Again, I would say part of how the city reacts to dogs is it tends to be one of those things where people who can afford what a dog might do are the ones who already own the dogs, anyways. So by walking around with the dog, you're just kind of saying, like, we're not worried about whatever you have to say. Like, the dog stays.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that that'll So he'll keep the dog with him. He'll be open about kind of unless Malchin gives some sort of indication to like keep quiet about it. He'll basically tell the captain like uh, found him. I think it was over by Hammer Close, that area. Uh, must belong to someone, but whoever it was wasn't around when we found him. Friendly enough though. Once you get to know him. Uh, but otherwise, he'll once they're kind of situated, and maybe he'll wait until if the ales, the beers have been brought around before kind of so about that note. Hoping to pick your brain about these Vi folks. Wonder if I know you told me uh I know it wasn't the captain who told him about the kill raven, I don't think.
Well, you're looking at one of the greatest thorns in our side. You're not involved with them, are you? And they'll kind of like look to each of you.
Nashon will like immediately go, no, no, no. I just found this uh, while on a job in the docks, and well, I got curious.
And Davros will similarly shake his head and no, I'm just uh, wondering if maybe my son fell in with them. Nothing else has panned out. I'm a bit desperate, so this seems as good a thing to check up on as any.
So some of his questioning is he is still a police officer, effectively, like as a commissar's man. Part of his job is still effectively policing. So there is a certain level of like he's going to question kind of some of those characteristics of uh Dalton to see this, that, and the other, just as much as he's going to be kind of asking Malchin kind of similar questions. So some of these questions are kind of like basically directed towards both of those. It's like, what kind of job were you on, Malchin? Or what kind of jobs was Dalton in the habit of taking? And he'll more or less be kind of like picking at trying to see, like, were you in the habit of taking jobs that completed with the death of others? And it kind of falls into like these are the type of things he would be asking both of you is like, are you going to tell him on some level, were you on an assassination quest? Did, as far as Davros know, did Dalton take jobs that were to kill people? And he's basically inciting all of your answers here. So it's a question of while you're speaking to this cop, there's a certain level of simply answering things as vague as possible, not answering things, and then also trying to lie to him. How do you think part of that conversation goes over when he's trying to feel out your motivation, your past, and kind of where you might have gone with the Vi?
So Davros will be pretty honest. He's already told the captain, I think, a bit about Dalton, or had been kind of questioned the first time they met. As far as he knows, he never had any run-ins with the Vi. Dalton, I mean, he's kind of, I'll be like, I know he's, he got into a bit of trouble, as the young ones are apt to do, but nothing so no nothing so serious. It's not as far as I know.
Yeah, and Malchin would be maybe a bit more cagey with his answer, but still, like, truthfully telling you, he's relatively new here. Just having gotten there a couple of months ago, and while not the most law-abiding citizen in the past, maybe hasn't taken on any contract killings ever.
It may bode well that your boy is perhaps not inclined towards their work, and I appreciate your honesty in understanding that your own choice of work matters. There are some who believe the Vi are simply assassins for hire. There are others, much smaller numbers, that believes gangs of the Warrens tend to graduate from hoodlums to killers with the Vi. And of those who believe that, there are many who are certain that all of these are in the employ of the Balcazars. There's few criminals who do not answer to the Balcazars in the end.
And is this a name that either Davros or Malshin would be have heard before or have any familiarity with? Yeah.
I feel like Malchin is probably more than likely has zero chance of knowing anything about the Balcazars. Um, I would almost say Davros seems to be a clean enough person that he probably wouldn't. But let me get you to do a history check to see how much you listen to your wife.
Uh, 15.
I'd say that's good enough for you to recognize that among the well off families, many of the well off have affiliations or are cousins of this noble family. So I think we discussed that she works out of the river district. And that's one of those places where there's a lot of like near nobility in the river district. And I think a lot of the Balcazars is like that recognition, like this is one of the largest, one of the oldest of the noble houses of Ptolus. And in particular, they're kind of the one, if there's crime going on, you kind of tend to look at the Balcazars first.
Gotcha. Okay. Um,
As far as your note itself goes, it's clearly speaking about Delver Square. A Besh stands tall in the center of the square. It is his oldest statue. If I had to guess, there's more to this uh, heading underground. There's the black market in that area. Uh, and he'll kind of like correct himself, like, if you've not been, it's perhaps less a single market and ever winding caverns of the banewarrens where you can find illegal trade items before they are moved along and pop up somewhere else. The black markets can be found beneath Delver Square, as that is still where most of the money that flows in the city moves. Yeah. Let me roll for this. If you need more regarding their movements, their actions, I must turn you elsewhere, as we are strictly forbid from having any dealings with the Balcazars or much of their workings within the city. And this will probably be the most secretive thing that he actually kind of shares. Maybe even one of those things to kind of like remind you almost before he says this. It's like, our conversation here goes nowhere. But know that the Balcazars are powerful enough that the Commissar's men are forbid from having any strict dealings with their criminal actions. It is the Commissar's order that the Balcazars are too powerful for us to shut down. It would mean all-out war. And in this city, a civil war such as that would cost thousands of lives.
so nothing official. I understand.
Nothing official that I can do. We have met others And if you required another introduction, I could arrange it. But those who are of a less official capacity are allowed more leeway. Sometimes groups need policing themselves, and it's acceptable to offer sacrifice to know that others may survive. The Balcazars and the Vi are no different. Sometimes it's for the greater good that someone falls beneath the boot.
Well, appreciate your offer of introduction. Might take you up on that some point. And Davros will turn to Malchin and kind of, what do you think, Malchin? Could just poke around a bit ourselves down in the square.
Yeah, I mean, really have a better idea myself, so direct approach might be the best.
So theoretically, unless you had any other questions, you guys can kind of spend like the last little bit kind of having like an ale here with Captain Simon. Um, Effectively, unless you guys had thoughts, I don't really think there's much more to pick up from him. But he'll kind of like head off on his way and kind of with like a little bit of like nod of recognition, um, kind of moment to remind you keep it silent, but best of luck to you kind of thing. This is one of those situations where it's like I'm not allowed to do anything, but if you just so happen to do anything, there's a lot of people who would look the other way.
Yep, and that's definitely the sense that Davros is getting, kind of a wink and a nod. Um, but yeah, he did not have any other specific questions for the captain.
Gotcha. And then I think beyond that, like it's kind of a reference to the Knights of the Pale would be another one of the groups to potentially speak to. Um, I feel like there's another solid, like good aligned group. Maybe he would point you towards like the Sisters of Silence as another option to speak to as well. But I think by and large, he's kind of like more or less still inferring like you've probably got enough to go on what you're looking for. Um, they may not give you a whole lot more information, just kind of a deeper understanding, maybe in like their zealotry against these groups.
Yeah, and I think Davros would definitely kind of try to keep that in mind for maybe, somebody to talk to at some point in the future. But I think for now he's ready to, if Melchin is amenable, kind of heading for Delver Square and maybe just, like you said, poking around a bit ourselves.
So if that sounds good to Malchin as well, Lower Ration Street, I believe, is going to be a pretty solid route towards Delver Square. To head off into that direction will get you most of the way. Yeah, because Ration Street comes up around Long Bottom area here, where you can then take what is that, Lower God Row, and then it's just kind of like a couple of jinks towards Delver Square. Um, Closer you get towards the center of Midtown, there's definitely a like rowdy kind of like party atmosphere in this area. you can probably hear some of the partying that's going on, like around Tavern Row as you guys get closer and closer. But in the long run, there's definitely plenty of action to kind of be seen and heard as you all approach that area.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, Davros is gonna just kind of head. Um, still got the dog with him, heading towards the square. We don't have the official papers, right? Or is that, since we're part of the Twin Star Marauders, is that, I feel like it costs a lot to get one of those like licenses, right?
Like to officially join the Delvers Guild.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I've thought about mechanically. I sometimes wonder if the point is that you should almost start the guild as the Delvers Guild. But yeah, I would say there's a certain level of um, if you want to buy maps and reference maps that other people have essentially produced, that's a big part of paying into the Delvers Guild. Um, and in the long run, with enough money, it's definitely worth doing to kind of matriculate yourself there. I also don't think there's any reason to say that as you guys map different areas, you can't collect your own maps insofar as the Twin Star Marauders go. But yeah, I would say there's certainly um, an investment to be spoken of when you start to imagine that Davros is a member of like um, the Ironworkers Guild, the Twin Star Marauders, and then also potentially the Delvers Guild. You'd start to get into the point where, wow, I'm paying a lot of dues, and it kind of gets to the point of asking, does Davros really care to still be an iron worker? Um, but on some level, I feel like Twin Star Marauders and the Delvers Guild are perhaps meant to be molded together. But at present, I think maybe we'll just go ahead with when you're ready, you can pay into it. Perhaps in the long run, what I'll do is have like the Marauders like subsidize when you do it. So it's like as if they were the same, or maybe as if they were like a different front of the same guild.
Like, there's not this sort of thing where like they're gonna stop us from, because like there's like one, I think you said like how you described the squares, like there's one kind of big entrance that actually heads down underground, but they're not like checking papers before people go down there, right?
Yeah, so you can actually see like this is the Delver Square there. That is a Besh like kneeled, like that's his statue, essentially like kneeled at that pool in the center. And those stairs behind him are the entrance into the banewarrens. There are tons of those entrances. This is just like the main entrance, as far as things go. It's kind of like the first one that he created, and that's part of why this is Abesh's square. Um, Before it was called Delver Square, it was his square. That's part of like the piece of property that Kalimtar essentially bought from your son, was in recognition that this was another potential entrance into these places, and all of them are worth having. But yeah, you're not like getting checked for papers to go down. It's more if you've got a map, people might start to stop you kind of thing. uh if you had a map and it had like Delver's like runes on it, you might get beat up and or killed over it. But that's one of the things that there's like the varying levels of, if you've got a map, they might take it from you. If you've got a map with their runes on it, they might do something far more severe. But it's almost like they have the monopoly on mapping, or like the sale of maps to underground. But even beyond that, part of what they offer, part of why you would join them, is there's also certain levels of like after a year or so, you can upgrade your level and they will go down and like recover your body if you died in the banewarrens. They have caches where you can go and stop and basically consume like healing and like recover yourselves still in the warrens. There's a lot of reasons to become a delver, but starting off, there's definitely a lot of reasons to do it a little bit more nefariously and single-mindedly.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So in that case, Davros will just kind of suggest we to Malchin that we just head down one of these main places and see if we can make something out about the note that he found.
So heading into Delver Square is one of those things where like you go past one of the main like kind of restaurants of the area. There's like brothels in the area near like Tavern Row. Kind of heading into this, you head past the guard post. You'll head past St. Gustav's Chapel. You go into kind of a main part of the city there. The Ghostly Minstrel Inn is one of the biggest inns, bars, taverns, like all into itself, right there. And this is also one of the places to get all sorts of equipment. So, if you wanted to get armors, any sort of weapons, if you wanted to look for anything magical, there's a lot of different options here in the square, as well as simply if you're going to go down, do you want to look for somebody to accompany you as a um uh sidekick comes to mind, but effectively like do you want to pay a porter, somebody to follow you down and carry things for you? Do you have any need for somebody else's assistance, or are the two of you looking to go down and almost remain like as indescript as possible?
Alchin would. And like, we should probably, even if we got this big dog with us, we should probably try to stay as unnoticeable as possible.
I'm fine relying on ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys can head down into the kind of Bane Warrens here in this main entry. Um you essentially head down these large stairs. You can kind of like immediately start to hear the sound of some of the like water of the street above. You can start to hear some of the actual like echoes of like the base of the city like above, kind of alive, like echoing through the stonework of the town here. You feel that like chill in the air and start to have kind of like a little bit more of an almost like stagnant smell of air as it kind of steps away from like the lively city. And for a little bit, you're kind of descending down like 30, 40, 60 feet. And then it kind of like levels out into this lower level. Uh, you've been in the sewers. You can recognize you're well below the actual like sewer levels than when you went in and you like fought the rat men. And you just kind of like look and there's still people kind of moving about in this area. This is kind of the initial sort of entrance to the black market. It's not necessarily a black market as in things are illegal here, but there are those things offered, and that was part of what Captain Simon was kind of like almost relaying. Is like there's a market, there's the market that moves, and then there's the really illegal parts of it. So it's kind of a question of like when you first go down, is it moving into the darkness of the dungeon that you're looking for? Are you trying to follow some of the people who are like moving as if they have purpose here? Or are you guys looking to get away from everybody and actually like start to search through parts of the Bane Warrens?
Uh, Davros is probably thinking more of kind of going off on our own, at least to start.
Gotcha. So you do what you can to kind of like head away from some of the other people, and kind of like make your way off on your own. Let me get survivals from both of you here.
That's a 21 for Malsham.
And 18 for Davros.
So I would say among some of the first things that you're going to notice is that getting away from like the feeling of somebody's been here before you is actually part of the difficulty here. And this is again one of those things where eventually down the line you can come to perhaps appreciate part of what the the Delvers Guild does is essentially offer you maps, but also these maps are the type of thing where you can see where other people have mapped, which means when you can find something that is not on the map, you know that's maybe worth more interest there. But you kind of are just going to search for quite some time here, where you're going down tunnels in absolute silence. There's no movement, no sounds like this, no this or that. And it ends up being one of those things where you kind of continue to head up and down stairs. And you're kind of just looking to almost find yourselves lost inside of the banewarrens. And I think I'm just gonna need a moment to actually throw some fog up on this map, and I'll put you guys on a map here. So if you want to step away for a minute, maybe just have 5 minutes, and then I'll be back with you.
Sure. Yep.
All right.
I'm back.
Where I threw something on there that was massive because it's not even, it's still like loading it. It was a mistake. Oh, I didn't even realize. It just gave me an error button. Looks all blacked out though for you, Justin.
Yep.
Hello. I'm back.
Excellent. I think this is the map that I took for the dungeon that I created for a day like this. But this is not quite the one that I was ever planning on using. I like built this whole map and then I realized like in hindsight, I'm like, I used the same stones for the floor as I did for the walls. And when your walls and your floor are the same stone, you can't see them because they're the same stone. So it's like a whole map of like this beautiful like gray stonework and then doors, but you can't see like any of the walls because they just look like the floors. So let me have you guys roll, just whoever rolls first, a d4, please. Kind of just to see cardinal directions, which one you come in on.
I rolled a 1.
So bam, you guys should be able to see up in the northeastern quadrant where we've got uh, the kind of like entryway to this area. And you guys are basically like walking along these halls and corridors until eventually you kind of like come to a point where there's like some fresh stonework that like the stones are almost kind of like falling through this area. And you can kind of like push through, widen a little bit, and find a passageway into this little spot. You can start to hear a little bit of like flowing water in this area. And after having like climbed some stairways, gone down other stairways, you have a rough idea that you are like higher than when you like left Delvers Square. But you're probably basically like 20 to 40 feet below the surface of the city above you as you guys enter here. And you still have the dog with you?
Yep. Still on his makeshift leash. And Davros would have maybe before we went in, like if there was just like a stall, like bought some extra water and fresh food for the master.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you guys fill your water canteens, I think those are like in the gallon range. So that's a solid like day or two of water, I think. Um, you don't necessarily need to buy an extra one, but if you wanted to, you are welcome. I don't think they're terribly expensive. As far as buying food goes, I assume like fresh food and you fed him like right there kind of thing. Or do you mean that you want to have like some food on you to kind of continue,
No, so I
or
think
almost
he
as
would
like
have.
treats?
So something like a chicken, like basically like a chicken that he would have essentially kind of like a roasted chicken and fed it to the mastiff before
Gotcha.
we headed down.
Something to feed it, and then like it ate all of whatever you bought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like in a yeah, an extra water skin's only a couple silvers, so yeah, and a chicken's only actually a couple coppers in the PHP. So
Yeah, so I'd say that's one of those things. Like if you got some sort of like bird, you guys probably could have had like a wing or a drumstick each, giving the dog the rest. It chomps it down, all the friendlier for it, and you guys can basically head down and off into this area. So you're probably like say an hour and a half into exploring this area before you find this place that seems off the beaten trail enough. And you can kind of like start to explore where you kind of step through into another environment. Assuming that you are then on torchlight through all of this. As you guys kind of pass into this area, you essentially can see that it seems to be somewhat of kind of like a sewered system around here. You can see kind of like a flowing water beneath your feet. There's places to stand on each side of the actual passage here. Finished brick walls, and then say minimal flow. But you might start to pick up that this might be close to the actual sewer works, as there's still plenty of east-west flow that would be like downhill, or rather west to east flow that would be downhill, and a little bit less kind of northerly. But you might pick up more of that as we go on. But where you guys enter in through the rubble here, you can spot that there's kind of a T angle beneath you there, and you can start to explore at your leisure here.
yeah, Davros will. So he's got the dog, so he might light up a torch and hand it off to Belchin if he mind carrying it. So Davros has at least one hand free, uh, and yeah, he'll start down towards the intersection.
Yeah, Malcolm will follow right behind with the torch in hand.
So when you kind of make your way to the actual intersection here, I think you'll spot that there is one door off about 30 feet or so to your right, maybe 15 feet or so to your right. You can see off in the distance of your light, and Mauchin could probably make it out a little bit better. Mauchin, one of your characteristics is dark vision, right?
No, I think we changed that, but I got a custom lineage instead, so I have regular vision only.
Okay, okay. So as you look off into the distance, you have a vague kind of view into the dimness, where there's like a kind of like drain that is dripping water into this system, and a little bit beyond that on the north side, you can spot kind of what seems to be maybe another door. To your left, you have a view of another of these drains kind of just around the corner, or maybe simply at this point, you can kind of hear like the trickling of water coming from that direction as well. But the sewer does kind of turn at about 20 or so feet to your left there.
Davros is gonna look towards Malchin and then nod towards the door off to the right. And any preference, Malchin?
Well, One's as good as the other, I guess. Pick whatever you like. I'll follow.
Yeah, so Davros will start off to the right towards that door.
Oh,
And
my bad. When I said you're right, I'm talking for Davros. It's technically your left as Justin.
oh, gotcha. Oh, right here.
My
Got it.
bad.
I see it.
Trying
Yep.
to set it in like as you're like coming. It's almost as if we flipped the map upside down to give you like your perspective. But yeah,
I gotcha. Yep. Yeah, so Davros will head towards that door off to, yeah. Uh, and I think we'll just go directly to try to open it.
gotcha. So as you open up this door, there's no resistance to it. Doesn't seem to be locked. You are going to kind of like open into what seems to be some sort of storage cellar. And inside, you can see that there's a bunch of stone. There's a bunch of like maybe like wine racks along the back wall. I am not sure what those circles are supposed to be, but I'm going for that it's just kind of like a storage cellar of some goods here. And it seems to be kind of like a dry stock almost of a nicer little setup since it's got like wine racks just kind of sitting in here in what otherwise seems to be a sewer.
Uh, Not what I was expecting. Davros was going to move inside. Uh, and yeah, I guess he's going to move towards one of the wine racks and try to see whether it looks like this place is has been stocked recently. Like, are the bottles dusty? Are there um, any signs of like I don't know if the wine bottles here would have like labels, but like signs of like recent vintages, that sort of thing. Like trying to get a sense. Is this almost like a forgotten place, or is this something that people are kind of coming to regularly?
Roll a perception for me here. I guess that's the question. I like to ask that. Do you want to just look over things? Are you kind of feeling around and almost like brushing dust off of things? If you want to like be more physical, that's an investigation.
Yeah, I think he'd probably be like probably picking up some of the bottles. So make an investigation. So actually, that would be a 9.
Gotcha. So I don't think you're gonna get a clear idea with a 9 to whether anything's like freshly kind of restocked. Um, Couple of kind of like checking a few wine bottles here. There's a good many bottles in here. Probably more than each of you could carry. To say like maybe there's like 20 or 30 bottles here. Uh, they seem full. There's no like empty bottles here. Um, Certainly dusty. Whether that means that they've sat here for a month or a year, I think is maybe hard for you to tell. Um, but I'd say on some level, like this is a stocked wine room, probably tells you. Um, well, I'll leave. That's enough info.
Yeah, so I think Davros will kind of picking just one of the wine bottles at random. He'll try to uncork it and take a swig and see, has it turned to vinegar or if it's like still tastes okay. And
Let's go for a classic. Are you picking a red or a white?
probably red.
Gotcha. Roll a D100 for me.
3.
So when you go and you take a sip, does Davros know wine?
I don't see any reason why he would. aside from like the difference between a red and a white, he's definitely not a. He's more of a beer drinker.
You get a strong, like, pucker from your lips as you take this sip. Ah, that's some strong wine, and you can kind of like taste almost the like depth of alcohol from within it that you were by far not prepared for. I don't know if you, Justin, have ever had like a port and you were expecting like some swill. But I would say this is kind of like drinking some really, really good wine when you expect it to be shit and it's actually fortified on top of that. So I don't think there's any reason to say Davros recognizes this. But if you've had that sensation, I want to give it to you because it is definitely like strong in tannins. It's a very earthy, very, very like vibrant. It is not vinegar. You can pick that up right away. But whether he recognizes that like that's probably a really pricey bottle of wine, probably well beyond his ability to recognize that. But high tannins, very strong pucker sensation, and it's like a fortified wine, effectively.
Gotcha. So yeah, so he'll hand the bottle handed open bottle out towards Malshin. Um, strong stuff, not bad though. Kind of offering it if in case he wants to try it.
Yeah, Malsham will take the bottle and go. Not bad for sewer wine or not bad for wine. But then just drinking it before hearing you answer.
Does Maushin have a reason to appreciate wine?
I mean, maybe not appreciate exactly, but from working in the that tavern, the docks, what is it, the Silken Sails? He
Gotcha.
probably would have drunken quite a bit of everything uh, on his off time.
So I would say this is well beyond what sailors would drink. So probably well beyond what they would drink there. Roll a D100 for me though.
That's 45.
I'd say it's probably beyond your tastes, but you could at least recognize that again, it's not gone bad. It's not turned to vinegar. It's certainly a strong wine. It's got some of the flavors that you know wine drinkers want, where you want that really earthy, um, not necessarily like floral thoughts, but you almost want that kind of like um dark, strong, fruity, almost turned to like caramel kind of flavor of like the wood. You can appreciate this bottle, but not like a wine connoisseur could.
Now that he just go, yeah, you're right, it is good, even for sewer wine. And he'll hand it back, and then he'll actually go up to the wine rack where Davros took the wine and take a bottle for himself, if there's any any left.
Roll a wisdom with advantage.
That is a 9.
So you reach out and you basically like go for it. Wait, that was with advantage too, right?
Yep, that was a 1 and a 7.
Gotcha. So yeah, you can go out and you like grab one that has like a similar label, and you're like, yeah, the label's what matters. And you can like grab this wine bottle up. And this is one of the difference of it's like it's made in the same place, but a lot of places like have the coveted southern exposure wine, but also like you don't want the ones that are at the lowest level because they freeze the soonest. The bottle you just grabbed was from that low level versus like the bottle that he grabbed first is from the like middle level of like because you want to grow your wine like on hills, like on the hillsides. And it's the difference between like the vines that you keep because you grow them for drinking, and the vines that are like your pick of the litter. And you grab the same vineyard, uh, pretty similar year vintage, but in the long run, you'll be surprised when you find that. You can write down vintage bottle of wine, 30 gold pieces.
Yeah, and when he hands it back to Davros, Davros can take kind of one more swig, recork it, maybe just grab another random bottle off of the shelf to stow in his pack, and then I
So
guess
for you, it's not even paying attention, it's just one of them.
yep, he's just grabbing one. Maybe he'll look to grab another red, but other than that, yeah,
Gotcha. Let me get another D100 from you here.
that is a 10.
Dude. Yeah, just put down like I mean, again, you don't know this, but this is just to kind of keep track of it. I would just say like old vintage red, and you can put down like 350 gold pieces.
Completely
Again,
lost.
those
All right.
values are not that you guys know this. Those values are so you can inform me what I said when you do something with it. I don't know if you have a convenient way to mark that, but I feel like they're maybe even just having them in quotations until you get it like appraised or some sort kind of thing.
Yep. Gotcha.
So you found a little wine cellar in this place. You've already spotted that there's like one more door down, like in the direction you were heading, and then there's another double door that's on the south side in that same direction. So if you all continue forward here, you've got like two more doors kind of ahead of you, and it seems to be maybe a third door still within sight, but on the north side as you continue on.
Yeah. So kind of closing the door behind us. Davros will kind of nod to kind of keep continuing on this direction and head towards the next door. And I think you will similarly just go to open this one up.
Alrighty. So as you open this door, you are very quickly going to actually see light coming from the actual cracks in this. As you open up and you see two large dining tables, a well lit room, and these tables are still like strewn with food, but the food is mostly, vastly been eaten. It's as if you've walked in right after a meal.
But the food seems like fresh, like not it's not like starting to rot or.
Yeah, everything smells, from your perspective, I would say plenty appetizing.
Davros will look towards Melchin, kind of a raise of his eyebrows, and um, is there a way to tell the quality of the food? Like, is this fairly simple fare? Does it look more? Or maybe even looking at like the if there are like dishes or platters that seem like high quality or.
Um, I'd say you could pick up enough. Like this is the kind of thing like where it's like for feeding large numbers of people. There's maybe like say like the remnants of like two chickens that are almost like picked bare. There's like a little bit of like the flank of like a lamb that's pretty much picked bare. And then probably what remains is things like maybe there's a little bit more like of a potato stew or like a vegetable stew. But like by and large, I'd say this is like say 95% eaten, and most of the meat is certainly what has been furthest consumed. There's a little bit of wine still on the table, were you to take a swig of that, you'd find that it's like well watered down. But again, that's kind of traditional to recognize that like often wine or alcohol is used to make water palatable, or not
Gotcha.
even palatable, but safe to drink.
Right, right. Yeah. So Davros going to look towards Malchin and then assume that's a door off to the side here.
There is indeed one door to the west there.
So Davros will turn towards Malchin and seems like maybe we just missed them. They're some feet a fair number. Should we take a look? And he'll gesture towards the door.
Sure. Uh, let's do it.
Yeah, so Davros will head over to this door. This time he is going to kind of stop and listen, try to see if he hears anything coming from the other side.
Roll a perception for me.
That will be an 18.
So was you listen for the other side? And you will hold? Doesn't seem to be anything happening on the other side of those doors.
He will turn towards Malchin, kind of give a shake of his head. Don't hear anything, and go to open it.
So this room you're going to find is kind of like a sort of match of this other room. You kind of like walk into what seems to be a couple of like ale like kegs set aside on the wall. There's a couple of like wine vats where wine's like mixed with water. There's a few small pieces or like two plates, say, of some food that's like left out on the table there, but you kind of have the like a sensation like this is like the preparation room for what was consumed over there. It's currently left empty, but this is also where you would expect somebody to be if they're still kind of in the process of doing dinner type things here.
Um, and I guess maybe going to kind of looking at the like the kegs. Is there any sort of like uh, signs or like carvings, anything to like essentially kind of indicate ownership or who might be using this um, place for?
Make a history check for me.
It's a 10.
I'd say you can see markings on them that seem to be close enough to like letters and like dwarvish runes that it gives you enough to say like it's probably some humanoid of sorts. None of them that make necessarily enough sense, but also like you're not really like somebody who's keen on the like kind of restaurant industry kind of thing. So it's one of those things I'd say where you don't expect to know the answer, um, but at very least it's humanoid enough to be like society adjacent.
Gotcha. Um, yeah, so I think kind of with that, Davros will suggest to Malchin maybe we head back out, keep exploring. Curious about who this place belongs to, but Like he will go to return back into the corridor. Uh,
Gotcha. So when you go to open those doors, um, of course. So when you go to open these doors, you're actually going to kind of like butt right up into somebody who's like walking in the opposite direction. And as soon as you open the door, basically, you see this person who's like holding like a wash basin. And it's just like eye to eye contact with you. What are you doing?
oh, who are you?
Let me have you. I don't even know if there's a role for that. I feel like it's just straight to initiative at this point. Like you don't think there's a role for that, right? Like that's not like a persuasion.
No, 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 no.
Of all the like random rolls for checks, like that's when I rolled like an actual high number, and it's a 20. So, what do you guys got for dexterity initiative rolls?
All right, so it'll be a 14 for Davros.
That would be a 4 for Martian.
Let's see. Can you on D&D Beyond go to your extras tab and add a mastiff? Or do you want me to send you a mastiff?
Let me see.
Well, I can just tell you its stats as well too. So,
Oh yeah, okay, got it. Mastiff. Yep.
alrighty. So when you see this guy, he's shot, probably like mid 30s, dark hair, about your height, like mid 5'10" to 5'11" ish, and it's so just somebody like standing on the other side with this water pail, and is just going to start with first action to start things off. I think is going to be a strength contested strength check, and he's going to try to push you prone as he like takes this like like bucket and like basically push it into your chest, hoping to knock you over, splash you with water. Hopefully that slows you down, whatever. But effectively, this person's hands are full, and their first thought is just to try to push, like barrel into you at this point. So contested strength with Davros, please.
All right. Is that straight strength?
My bad. It's athletics or acrobatics for you. Um,
This would be a 19, Davros.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This character I have is not a strength character. That is purely just the chance of it. I had very little chance that whole time. Yeah, I've got a straight 15 here. So they just like kind of like push into you and almost like push themselves backward, and almost like outside of the room. And as they kind of just like drop this bucket between the two of you, um, they are going to, I think, I'm going to draw a hand crossbow. They're going to disengage. Oh, I guess I could drop a model. It doesn't really matter to me, but they're going to disengage as they like step away from you. And as they run, take a shot at you. So they're gonna run in the direction you all have not actually gone yet, but you do have light kind of going down in that direction. You probably can't quite see in that direction yet to know that there are two different places that they might go from there. But like once you actually like peek around the corner, you would know enough. But yeah, It's gonna kind of like run to there. They're gonna turn back around as they're going and take a shot at you with a hand crossbow, and probably give you like 2 AC for the corner of the door sill there. 13 to hit you.
That will miss.
And then it will go to Davros. This person kind of like booked it away. They're not terribly far away. What would you like to do?
Yeah, so Davros almost kind of like maybe even like smirks a little as the guy tries to kind of like push him over, but then as he kind of rushes away and then turns and fires a crossbow, he'll become considerably less smug, and he'll just like he'll give a shout like, "Hey, that's uncalled for." He will he's going to chase after him. He's going to drop the leash on the mastiff as he essentially runs out. And I don't know how far the light extends, if he can see where the guy.
I'd say at this point you can at least see that much inside of dim light. But if you're not holding light right now, you're going to be dim light attacking right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. So he'll go out into the dim light, and he'll show like that was a that's uncalled for, and he is going to attempt to um, essentially kind of pulling out the maul, attempt to essentially knock this guy into the wall behind him and knock him out, or at least like
Gotcha.
daze him essentially.
So you can go ahead and make that attack and see if you can solid
Uh,
strike for sure.
well, that's disadvantage, right? So that's
Oh
with
yeah,
only
yeah, my bad.
so it's only a 12 to hit.
12 is indeed still just what you need as this person. You can kind of gain a sense while they are quick on their feet, this person is not really wearing armor. This is just somebody going about their day, right?
Gotcha. And that will be for 10 non-lethal damage or 10 damage.
All right, solid hits. It is not going to leave them bloodied at this point, but you do like kind of like smash them with your hammer. You hear some like bone breakage, where you gain that sense of having bashed this person. Far as things go, let's
Um,
see. Um, let's see what the dog does. I'm gonna say for right now, the dog is just gonna kind of like rush up, and it's just kind of like leaping on people. For what it is worth, effectively right now, the dog thinks there's playing going on, doesn't necessarily recognize what's happening, and it's gonna go to Malchin. Well, I guess I could put that as like maybe it's trying to knock somebody over. Let's do it like that. I'll do odd it's you, even it's him, and then it's going to basically grapple to try to knock somebody prone.
it looks like it's
So
got a +1
against
to
it,
its strength.
yeah. So you roll an actual strength test for it for its athletics, and then I'm going to roll for the actual guy here.
5.
I might stop on the 13, but there's also a 1 right there. So yeah, so as it tries to like push him over, it's just enough that he's like stirred it against the wall as Davros is crushing him up against the wall. So again, it's really just trying to play at this point. Doesn't necessarily recognize what's going on. Uh, again, part of this is it's not like your trained dog, so you don't have full control over this here. But it is currently not attacking you, and it's going to go to Mouchin.
Yeah, that's gonna mature out a bit. Could I get to the other side of him, like from the dog?
I don't see why not.
Yeah. And then with that, I'm gonna pull out only one of my swords, still holding the torch, and attack him non-lethally as well. That is 16
Solid hit with that.
for 7 damage.
And that'll kind of be like the draw in between like him going bloody to seeing like this is like effectively a mortal wound. As you kind of like cut across and a little bit of like his cloak kind of like feathering away with the blade. You can see it's a pretty like horrendous like gash across his chest as Malchin kind of like crosses between and cuts right across this guy's like breast, almost like nipple to nipple kind of thing. um Going to kind of dropping the crossbow from his hand, looking to you both. I yield i yield I care for this place. While the others are gone, I am little more than their cook. Do as you will. I'm yours.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you, who are these others you speak of?
We are a band, something beyond what is welcome but above. Many of us look to one day be able to gain imperial papers. But for now, we are stuck here. We live as one with the city.
How do you get by down here? Trading, stealing. Why can't you go? Why are you stuck down here?
Once a criminal, often always a criminal. We are not above whatever it takes to survive. But we have all in our own ways fallen beyond the reaches of legal paperwork.
Right. Well, we probably got a few more questions for you. Why don't we get out of the corridor here in case the rest of your band comes back, and they'll kind of put a hand, maybe fairly heavily, on the guy's shoulder and try to start essentially guiding him back into the prep room.
Gotcha. So you kind of like guide him back into that room. Uh, s- Not really fighting, but neither is he like trying to help him over there. As I feel like you kind of like have a relative like solid idea, like he doesn't want to leave that hallway where he might be seen. He's hesitant to like step through the door, but eventually like push through. He like kind of like stumbles in and like almost like falls to the ground like beneath the table. Before kind of like recovering himself on the other side.
Yeah, so Davros is gonna have to bring him in. He'll um well, he doesn't even know what the dog is called, but essentially try to like call them kind of back inside as well, so he can close the door behind them. Kind
Make an
of
animal handling check for me.
5.
The dog kind of like follows you all in there. When you push the man down, like again, like the dog like leaps on top of him and almost like stands on his chest for a moment before just kind of like backing off.
Yeah, so Davros will kind of um I'm going to forget you took a shot at me. Chalk that up to surprise. Got no reason to hurt you any more than we already have. Just didn't expect to see you either down here. And he'll almost go to like offer the have the guy like take a seat maybe on like one of the kegs or some like kind of makeshift seat.
Yeah,
And
I
then
feel like
actually,
there'd be something to sit on in here. So
and he might even take out the already opened bottle of wine and kind of offer it almost as like a peace offering kind of thing. Just like I said, answer a few questions we've got, and we can forget about this little run in.
So he doesn't seem to really react too much like to the actual bottle of wine that you hand off to him. But when you offer it to him, like he takes the seat, he like takes the cork out with one hand and kind of slowly like looking into your eyes, like takes a sip from the bottle, whinges a little bit, puckers his face a little bit, recorks it, sets it on the table like next to him, and, like you can see he's like, taking a little bit of effort to kind of like seal up, like put pressure on what is otherwise like a pretty dangerous wound. Um, in the long run of things, it's one of those things where, he'll be fine enough with non-lethal damage. He's not like in danger of death here. Um, but basically takes a little moment to kind of like staunch his own wounds, maybe like tie his cloak a little bit tighter around his chest so it can help clot the blood. And what are you all down here searching for?
Well, I suppose in the more immediate sense, looking for the Vi. Signs of them. You and your gang have any run-ins with those sorts around here?
You're not going to find those types moving around in groups. I've crossed paths with those who claim it, a deadly enough thing in its own right. But I think it's safe to say that if you meet the Vi, you usually have a knife to your throat before you are told so. And rarely will you ever find out that they have come in groups.
All right. What about the man named Dalton? You ever your band ever run across him? And he'll go on to just give like a brief physical description of his son.
Let me put this one to a D100.
I mean, I'm imagining fairly low odds, but I feel like he's going to ask everybody he meets essentially.
As well you should with your backstory.
It's a 2.
You dirty son of a bitch. So yeah, you'll see as he's kind of like listening to this description, you do see like a little bit of kind of a response from him. I've seen one who would fit those descriptions. Who is this Dalton to you?
So as he kind of as Davros realizes that and he kind of confirms that the description is familiar, he kind of has to like stop himself from kind of surging forward and almost like grabbing him by the throat. So almost like kind of start and then like kind of stop and take a breath. And
Make a wisdom saving throw. See if you can stop yourself.
yeah, that fits. Let's see. Ooh, let's see. Wisdom saving throw. It's a 10 flat.
I feel like that's safe enough to say. If you want to stop yourself, you can. If you don't want to stop yourself, you can't. So I think that's solid enough to say just make the decision you think is best.
Yeah, I feel like that with that he'll grab like maybe some of like the man's cloak, but and then kind of like let it go and then take the breath.
Gotcha. Give me an intimidation.
Let's see. Flats. Oh wait, no. Yeah, 16. And he would be at that point saying like, Dalton is my son. I've been looking for him for some time. You say you know of him at least. Where did you see him? And he's like kind of just like going like kind of asking questions, just rapid fire, almost like not even waiting for an answer because he's kind of getting just like uh, not excited, probably not the right word, but anxious or
So I was hoping I could actually flip to the right page so I could actually gather the names. But again, never really had this session prepared. Obviously, we're supposed to be doing something else. So I'm hesitant to give you the names. I think we can kind of continue still. Um, and maybe I can find them still, but I was working a ship from the docks for 5 weeks ago, and the captain of another ship was coming in, and we were moved over to his for some night work. And in the dark, one person who is brought in, and say like he'll describe like some physical characteristics, like maybe like a scar across his like bicep or like a birthmark, something like that, where it's like not necessarily like the face, but kind of like a noticeable characteristic of Dalton, that he could kind of describe, and it's like basically like in the firelight I saw someone who had a similar figure. And at some point, while we were taking everybody into the warehouse, there was a tussle. This person headbutted someone, and in being punished, the hood over his head was removed. He saw many of us, and he was beat for it. But I think his face would still match as you described.
so Dalton or um, Davros is going to kind of like listen to all this kind of and as he starts describing kind of like the beating, he'll kind of be growing kind of his face will be kind of getting like darker and darker, his eyes look, kind of eyebrows will narrow, and he'll kind of like listen, he won't interrupt. um he'll kind of wait for this story to be told, and then he'll almost kind of like with like um like a calmness that's very like foreboding kind of calmness, like, I see. So you helped beat my son. um
I was there as little more than a porter. Everyone has to eat. Your son was beaten by, and this is where I need the actual name of the person, who again, I'm sorry. Um,
no, I mean, I was not expecting this, like, yeah, no. Yeah, no, you're good.
I know I have like the thing prepared, but to bring it up on Notion, I like need to be thinking of the right word to like do the act to bring it up, and I'm trying to think, and I'm just not coming up with it.
No problem, it's, yeah.
It also doesn't help that I have to pee, and I was like hoping to like get wrapped up instead of taking a break when we're pretty much finished.
Yeah, I mean, Davros is, kind of once he gets the names and the information and stuff, he's essentially like his internally deciding, like, this guy says he was just a porter, but he's obviously angry. He has given me information, but he's essentially deciding if he's just going to kill this guy or not. But he will kind of, in the meantime, he wants to give uh, Mel, yeah, Melchus an opportunity to ask any questions that he might have. as he's kind of like trying to decide what he wants to do with this guy.
Yeah, Malchin seeing that was going a bit silent there, will like side eye him a bit before questioning this guy. Like, uh, maybe not as important as uh, my companion's son, but wouldn't happen to know where we could find the black market, would you?
Um, you're not far from many of the places that you would need to go. Are you looking to infiltrate the slave market?
Oh, not so much infiltrate, but one would think that information on people could also be bought at the black market. Hopefully.
Anything you can want is available at the black markets. It's purely just a question of what you would like to purchase. But that also informs you as to where you will be heading. So again, on some level, you guys have already kind of like gone through part of the black market, like entering into like the lower levels of the Delver Square, like entering in through that portal is already kind of like entering into the black market. There's just a market that is beneath Delver Square. Going far enough though, you were leaving that behind, but on some level, like that's one of those things where different parts of the banewarrens are actually different black markets at different times. So a lot of that is just the question of searching for it. And that's where like I could certainly like part of the names that I'm looking for is actually one of the people who runs the slavers black market. Um and is kind of one of the big people who you would go through when you were looking to purchase a person. Um, but it's on the same level of like there's plenty of other things like going through um uh why can't I think of it? Shit. Wait 1 second. Going through like the Killraven Crime League is like an information black market too. So it's just one of those questions of like the kill ravens aren't necessarily associated with the same black market as like the people who are selling slaves.
Well, Marshall would be more interested in the information side of the black market. We could find that, I guess.
And what sort of information are you looking for?
Oh, we already asked you some of it. Well, the Vi. Guessing it won't be sheep. Gonna find information. That would be a good place to start.
Make a persuasion for me. Roll a persuasion check for me.
That's a 3.
You will find there are few people who will give up information on the Vi, and fewer still who would give it for coin. I hope what I have told you pays for my life, or it is already in danger to speak of them. But it is already endangered to be beaten by you.
Marshall will like glance a bit at Taros, then say, "Oh, you won't be harmed by me, at least. That much I can guarantee."
You've given us some useful information. Why I'm not going to kill you. You looked on. Others beat my son. Is why I'm not going to leave you unscathed either. And I think Davros is going to try to essentially reach out, grab one of the man's arms, and essentially try to break one of his wrists, like in a kind of very quick, almost like kind of like cat-like, just like um, kind of like as he says this, just kind of try to reach out and do that if he can. Which might, I guess, require a grapple first.
Um, yeah, I mean, he's still under your control, so it's hard to say that he can't. I mean, he can resist only so much. Um, let's see. I think it's more a wisdom check for him whether he lets it happen before understanding what's going to happen. Yeah, I'd say he doesn't really resist. And then by the time you're actually like breaking his arm, it's already broken, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think kind of so. Yeah, so after kind of like like breaking his wrist, Davros is going to now we're done.
Yeah, so I think.
And he'll be like he'll dull the pain with that, and he'll gesture towards the bottle of wine that had been left on the table, and he'll just kind of leave that uncorked one there. But otherwise,
Gotcha.
like kind of dismissive.
I think it's best for me to find the name to give you at another point. Um, so I can kind of keep it straight here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no need to. Yeah,
but I would say this is a pretty solid time. It's pretty solid for us to go here. And I'm kind of at the end of like this little moment. Um, maybe, yeah, I'm going to say on some level, like when you snap his arm, there's like shriek of pain, chug some wine. But it's definitely one of those things where he's like, I can't remain here. And he'll like tear part of his cloak away and kind of like throw the like blood splotch like cloak onto the ground to leave like some kind of bloodied remnants behind, and almost start to move in a similar direction as you all go, as this person kind of prepares to exit this area. And I think for now we'll kind of like leave it as like as soon as he can get away from you guys, he's going to kind of like step away and disappear. But kind of leave it at with one kind of comment like there will be more to return here. You've got the information you need from ours. If you continue to search, you're going to find more than you are ready to deal with. Go and find your son. Leave this place behind you. And then this person just kind of disappears into the night.
yeah. So Davros is kind of he's of the same idea. He's got what he wants, but he will he'll look towards Melchin, and you know essentially offer like he'll essentially like I could use your help because I'm I want to go you know follow up on this is the obviously the best lead I've had in some time. Um, but kind of in exchange, like if there's something else Shin wants to do, he will offer to help him out with that. Um, not tonight, obviously, but in the at some point in the future. So, but he will suggest that we essentially heed this man's advice and vacate the area for now.
Oh, all right. I'll help you find your son, and I'll see what you can help me with later.
Fair enough. You help me find him. I'll certainly owe you.
So we can have you all return to the surface, return back to um, Delver's Square, passing through some of those black markets. Um, and again, in the long run, at this point, Malchin, you understand that effectively just beneath Delver Square is the black market, in that it's just one of those places you can go for pretty much anything. It's not a single place to go to so much as it's like go there at your own risk is part of finding the information that you need. Um yeah, I think one last roll before I think that's solid to see if when you guys come back up to the surface, does the dog peace out? And I think a 4 is going to say no. I think you're going to find by the time you leave this, the dog is still with you, like kind of held on the leash. So either Davros, you're taking it home to your wife, or you can leave it at the guild. But at present, you kind of have your own separate dog or own dog.
Yeah, so I think Davros he'll definitely want to stop off at home to, let his wife know that he has some, thinks he might have a bit of a lead. I think like probably given their, they probably don't have a real spacious home. So he might plan on bringing the dog. He'll come up with some sort of name, I guess, kind of on the way. But he'll have the thought to essentially bring it to the Crooked Skinner, and essentially, I don't know, maybe it can become kind of like the um, either if someone there wants it, or essentially become like the guild mascot kind of thing.